Welcome to Horror Bois. It's a podcast on the internet. I'm Austin, joined as always by
Chris.
And we are the Horror Bois. And this isn't just any old podcast on this old internet. No, my friends. This is a horror movie review podcast, where every week we review a horror movie. Unless it was that episode that came out in between this episode and the last one where we did that.
Yeah.
Once a year, we won't review a horror movie.
Yeah. Instead, we'll review the year.
Yeah. Hopefully you listened to that episode. I thought it was fun enough. Maybe you did too.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, today, we're going to start talking about a franchise.
Ah!
Fair. It's been a little bit since we've had a franchise discussion.
Yeah, that's true.
We're back at it, though. We're right in the swing of things with a big old franchise. Because today we're talking about Child's Play.
Right.
Which is the Child's Play or Chucky franchise, depending on who you ask. Because technically, you know, there are more movies that don't have the words Child's Play in it.
True. There are technically only 3 movies. Well, not technically. There are only 3 movies that have Child's Play.
It's just the way it is. There's actually no
technicalities involved.
Yeah, it's just the way it is.
Yeah. It is what it is.
Yeah. And before I even get into my notes at all, I have a personal anecdote, I guess, is the words I'm going to use to describe what I'm going to go into.
Okay.
So I want to talk about my history with Chucky.
Okay.
Yeah. He
I
terrified me
a little bit.
Beyond belief. I was terrified of Chucky so much as a child and a young adult. Up until literally when season 1 of the Chucky TV show was on the air in 2021, you know, just a couple months before I started this podcast, I would look away when the ads were on TV because I was like, ugh, I don't know, gross, Chucky's scary, I don't like Chucky. I'd look away as I walked past, what's the stupid store? Spencer's. And they would always have their, you know, Chucky doll in the window. I'd look away. I was terrified of Chucky. To the point where we weren't even supposed to discuss this franchise for like another year or so, at least. Because I was like, I'm going to push it off. We're not going to cover it till at least we've done at least a full 2 to 3 years of the podcast. So I know this is something we're doing, and it's worth me covering this franchise.
Yeah.
Then I watched some, YouTube videos on the franchise, and then I watched all of the movies earlier this year and fell in love with this franchise. So I changed up the schedule to cover it as soon as possible.
And here we are.
Yeah, so here we are. Starting off with 1988's Child's Play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was directed and co-written by Tom Holland. No, not Spider-Man.
Nope.
This is the director and writer of Fright Fest. I don't remember if he's director or writer of these, but he's behind the scenes in one of those 2 roles for Psycho 2 and for Scream for Help with, what word is that? With an actor who starred in that movie, which is Horror Bois alum David Allen Brooks, who was on literally last week as new Agent Manners.
Huh.
And
yeah, new Manners.
Yeah, so that's like what he's like known for in like the world of. I mean, Scream for Help is not something he's known for. It's really this and Fright Night. But like he's known as being a director or writer, but he's actually a Horror Bois alum for his acting, because that's right. The director of this movie, Tom Holland, was in Hatchet 2 as Uncle Bob.
Huh.
Yeah. So, the director and writer of this movie.
Uncle who couldn't act. That's right.
Because he's not an actor. He's a director and writer. Much better at that than he is acting.
I remember Uncle Bob.
Yeah. We have our co-writers, the late John Lafia and Don Mancini, which is a name that will become very important as we go throughout this franchise, because he is
the head honcho of writing.
Yeah, he is more than that. He was the one who initially made the initial screenplay that was adapted with some help. Tom Holland added some stuff, John Lafia added some stuff. I'll also bring up here one of our producers is named David Kirshner, who also added in some like little bits of like the story. Like he came up with the Frankenstein moment, as he refers to it, which is the storm scene that like gives Chucky his power that we'll get to in a little bit. But he came up with that. He also came up with the name of Chucky's pre-doll name, Charles Lee Ray. It's a combination of Charles Manson, Lee Harvey Oswald, and James Earl Ray. Took a piece of each of their names and made...
Smash them together.
Yeah. He also helped
serial killer
draw like some of the initial like ideas for what Chucky was supposed to look like, the doll was supposed to look like, based off of the description that Don Mancini had in his original script. But yeah, Don Mancini and Kirshner will both be very important people going forward, as they just both are going to continue to be involved in this franchise going forward. Don Mancini is written every one of the movies, so we'll bring him up again when he writes those and stuff. He also directs some of the later ones. But yeah.
Nice.
One other thing about, our producer, David Kirshner, he's also the producer of like everything Curious George, which I just thought was really crazy.
Interesting.
Like anything, also like American Tail.
What a pivot.
Yeah, remember like the 5-0 movie, like the movie, like there's like American Tail goes west, where 5-0 goes west. They're like Don Bluth cartoons. He also produced those.
Wow.
And the entire like Chucky franchise.
Man is involved.
Yeah.
To say the least, in many things.
We have our composer, John Ronzelli of Poltergeist 3, Basket Case 2 and 3, and Dead and Buried, which is a movie that stars Horror Boy alums Robert Englund and the late Christopher Alport, who was also in, Jack Frost 2 and 1, because he plays our Sheriff Sam in those movies.
True.
Yeah. Then we have our director of photography, which is Bill Butler of Rocky 2 through 4, Grease, Omen 2, Anaconda, and this little film, you may have heard of it. It's called Jaws.
No.
I haven't heard of it, but apparently it's a horror movie.
What's that one
something.
About? Okay.
But yeah. As we already mentioned, David Kirshner helped draw and inspire the name of Charles Lee Ray, as well as the Chucky doll itself. The Chucky doll was specifically designed and executed by Kevin Yeager, who directed Hellraiser 4 and did special effects on Nightmare on Elm Streets 2 through 4, Friday the 13th Part 4, and, most importantly in my mind, The Master of Disguise.
Yeah?
Yeah. Okay, but I guess more importantly, Nightmare on Elm Street 4 under Tom Savini. No, sorry, Friday the 13th 4 under Tom Savini, and, Nightmare on Elm Streets 2 through 4. I guess that's kind of important.
I would say so, yeah.
I guess.
A little bit more prolific than The Master of Disguise.
But that stars, I'm blanking on his name. I love him.
Uh-huh.
Oh, no.
Now it's showing.
I do. I love him. The Dana Carvey. He has a great, short-lived, his own sketch comedy show. It's great. Go watch the Dana Carvey show. That's my suggestion for the week. There's no one in this movie was in Buffy, so that's my thing today. Is instead of talking about Buffy, I'm gonna real quick say, hey, go watch the Dana Carvey show. It's really funny and deserved more than it got. But I also fair warned that it is a sketch comedy show from the 90s, so half of it is making fun of the presidential race at the time. So, good luck!
Interesting.
Then we also have special effects and Chucky puppeteer, horror boy alum in his own right, Howard Berger, which that's right, he's the B in K&B Effects Group, which K&B Effects Group has worked on movies, just including some of the more recent ones, but they've done way more and are going to probably do way more as we keep covering, because they're some of the most prolific special effects people ever.
Yeah.
They did Scream 2, Wishmaster, and The Faculty. Just to name a few. I believe they did a few Texas Chainsaws and some Nightmare on Elm Streets. Like, they've done it all.
Yeah. They are in a lot of movies.
Yeah. Then, for the first time for this franchise, and I don't know how often it'll happen outside of this franchise, but I do feel like it's very important for this franchise, for me personally, is to give credit to our puppeteers. Which I will be honest, when I realized after I was mid doing this there were like 9 puppeteers, I might have not done it, but hey, I did it, and now we're going to keep doing it for the rest of this franchise, and other franchises where it feels really prevalent, like where there's like a very important puppet involved or something, maybe.
Like Puppet Master.
We're never covering those.
Yeah.
Unless we get a real big demand for them, I have no desire to take notes on those movies.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we won't, because we probably end up will. But as of right now, there is no plans.
And that's something I am grateful for here in this moment.
Yeah, our first puppeteer is Lauren Soman of Mac and Me, alongside Buck Flower and Andrew Divoff, who are both Horror Boy alums for The Wishmaster. I believe Buck Flower has also been in something else we've covered, but before I was like crediting everyone, because if I remember, Buck Flower was like played a bum in like every movie ever. But I could be wrong about that. But yeah, Mac and Me, get used to hearing me saying Mac and Me, because apparently Mac and Me has a lot of the same puppeteers as this movie. Ooh.
What is Mac and Me exactly?
Mac and Me is an E.T. knockoff, basically, that was made. It's one of the worst movies of all time.
Oh, yeah, it was for McDonald's.
Yeah, it was just an ad for McDonald's.
Okay, wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right.
Next, we have puppeteer Mark Tyler of Jumanji, Beetlejuice, Bill and Ted 2, Tremors 2, and Gremlins 2, alongside Horror Boy alum Zach Galligan, who was in Hatchet 3. He's also in, Gremlins 1, but we haven't covered that yet, so...
Next Christmas.
Yeah, I think it is. It might be the Christmas after. I don't remember. Next, we have puppeteer, the late N. Brock Winkless IV.
Of Mac and Me?
Of Alien 3, Bill and Ted 3, alongside Mark Tyler, and, yes, Mac and Me alongside Lauren. So, that is, I believe, the last time, because it's pretty early on, where I, say the other people who are in some of the movies they're in. It gets to the point where a lot of these people are in a lot of the same movies, so I don't bring it up if it's another puppeteer who I've already mentioned. I'm sorry. But
fair enough.
A lot of them are in the exact same movies. Next, we have puppeteer Dave Nelson of Mac and Me, Alien 3, and Nightmare on Elm Street 5, and Friday the 13th 5. We got puppeteer the late Frank Charles Lutkus III of T2, Jurassic Park, and what I'm sure they're most proud of, Mac and Me.
Yeah.
Then we have puppeteer Stephen James of Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Gremlins 2, Mac and Me, and changing it up, not Aliens 3, but just Aliens, the second Alien movie.
Huh.
I also, no, it's not Aliens 3, it's Alien 3. Only one of them has an S in it. I'm sorry if I said
it's
Aliens
just
3.
Aliens.
Yeah. Then we have puppeteer Alan Coulter of Mac and Me and Ghostbusters 2. And lastly, puppeteer Bill Bryan of Species 1 and 2, Jurassic Park 3, Men in Black, Ghostbusters, specifically as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
All right, now we got royalty.
Yeah, and they were also in Army of Darkness alongside Horror Boy alums Ian Abercrombie, who was in Jack Frost 2, Ted Raimi, who I believe we've only covered in Wishmaster, and Bill Moseley, who was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and I think 3D.
Yeah.
I think is the other time they show up.
Woo.
Yeah. We are finally
done. Start talking about the movie.
With the before we talk about it, which, hey, I'm happy to give all this information. I love talking about this side of the movies as well. But boy, is this more than I've ever had to talk about ever before.
Yeah. We got a stacked behind-the-scenes crew here.
Yeah. We open the movie with the Lakeshore Strangler, Charles Lee Ray, being chased by Detective Mike Norris. Charles Lee Ray, or as his friends call him, Chucky, is played by the amazing Brad Dourif of Lord of the Rings 2 and 3, alongside Horror Boy alum Elijah Wood. I don't know if they share any scenes, but technically they're in the same movie. He was also in Alien Resurrection, Exorcist 3, Rob Zombie's Halloween's, both of them, the first and the second, alongside Horror Boy alums Tyler Mane, Bill Moseley, Sid Haig, Ken Foray, Sean Whalen, and Danielle Harris are all within both. Some of them are in the first one, some of them are in the second one. I don't remember exactly who's in what, but he was in both Rob Zombie's Halloween's, and all of those other people who've been in other movies were also in. Most of them, ended up being in Hatchet movies, because the Hatchet franchise has broken the Horror Boy alums game.
Yeah.
What's the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon? It's, were they covered on Horror Boys before? And if they're a horror actor, they were probably in the Hatchet franchise, so we probably covered them before.
Yeah. Almost probably.
But not Kevin Foray. He was in Texas Chainsaw 3.
Woo.
But I think literally everyone else there, except for Bill Moseley. Sorry, Bill Moseley was Texas Chainsaws 2 and 7 or whatever. So
everyone else though.
It's actually surprising that Bill Moseley somehow didn't be in the Hatchet films.
Hatchet.
Well, that should have happened.
A little bit shocking. Yeah.
If they ever make, Victor Crowley 2/Hatchet 5, they should make sure to bring Bill Moseley in.
I hope they don't.
I do, because I love those movies.
If they do, but...
Then we also have... Oh, sorry, I'm not done. And, most importantly, while as playing the character Chucky, he made fun of Rick Steiner on WCW Nitro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a wrestling thing, so I had to bring it up. There was also a cool thing years later, more recently, because NXT, which is one of their WWE's TV shows, is on USA, so it's on the same channel that the Chucky show is airing. So they did a cross promotional thing for Halloween where they brought Chucky onto the show, and he got to interact with Rick Steiner's son, Braun Breaker, which I thought was really cool. So, Chucky, interacted with both of them. Both, Rick Steiner and his son, Braun Breaker.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, that's the wrestling talk for the day. We'll move on now. I've talked about Master of Disguise. I've talked about wrestling. I'm good. I mean, I can end the podcast right here.
See you guys next. Just kidding.
No, because now we got to talk about Mike Norris, who is played by Chris Sarandon of Fright Night. And he was Jack Skellington in Nightmare Before Christmas. The talking voice, the singing voice is Danny Elfman, but...
Classic.
Yeah. I believe he's also the ex-husband of Susan Sarandon.
Track?
Yeah. I believe they got divorced, but I believe, she still, uses his name that she got in marriage because of, she'd already built a name off of it.
Yeah.
But also, I know the name Susan Sarandon, but I didn't actually do any research on who that was and have have no face to the name. But I know the name of Susan Sarandon.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you anything that she's in.
Yeah. Charles and Mike Norris, who I'll be honest, the first part of the notes I call him Mike, but I decided to go with Detective Norris throughout most of my notes, so just fair warning if I switch between them. Yeah, so they're shooting back and forth at each other during this little chase scene, with Charles getting hit in the leg or butt. I can't quite tell. I went back and forth on the scene a couple times trying to figure out where he was shot. He's shot somewhere in the back and falls down. His getaway driver, Eddie Caputo, drives off without him when a cop car arrives. Eddie is played by Neil Guantoli of Shawshank Redemption and Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer Part 2. Yeah. Charles tries to hide in a toy store. We get our title card with a music cue, and then our credits start to play over the action. Charles and Mike exchange shots with Mike's hitting Charles in the chest. Charles yells that he's going to get revenge on Mike and Eddie no matter what. I just want to point out here, I'll try not to do it all the time, but I love Brad Dourif's performance in like all of the Chucky movies. I love just the way he delivers lines.
Yeah. I think it is a very fitting role.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, his delivery is killer.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
This is how you should do this scene, not like how they do it in Jack Frost 1, when it's the exact same plot of the movie, of the killer saying he'll get him back.
Yeah.
No matter what, much better delivered. Yeah, that's right.
Much
fired,
better.
Scott McDonald. I hope you see this. I thought you were alright overall, but not as good as Brad Dourif, and I feel like you as an actor probably can respect that.
I would imagine. Yeah.
My complaints were never any of the things you did. It was the lines that were written for you. So here's the thing. I will say, shots actually fired Scott McDonald if you ad-libbed any of your lines, because I did not like any of Jack Frost's lines. It's a good thing Scott McDonald will never see this. Charles stumbles around and pulls down a display of good guy dolls. He says a voodoo incantation over the dolls. It goes Ade, Due, Dumbala, give me the power, I beg of you, and then a bunch more that, if it's in other movies, they don't harp on it as much. Those are the words that are the famous ones. It's Ade, Due, Dumbala. I'm pronouncing it wrong. Give me the power, I beg of you. But yeah, get used to hearing that incantation. You will hear that again. I think in every movie. I could be wrong. I don't remember for sure.
I'm not mad at that.
Yeah. As he says the incantation, a storm starts over the building, and lightning breaks through the ceiling, hitting Charles and flinging Mark back in a cool wire stunt before exploding the whole building. Norris is fine and confirms that Charles is dead, and we see a shot of the Chucky doll's face that fades into the shot of the Barclay house.
Yeah.
It's young Andy's birthday.
Barclay apartment.
Barclay
apartment.
That's true. It is true. It is an apartment. It's definitely an apartment. It's one thing I'll point out here. As we find out in the story, they are supposed to be like a poor, struggling single mother with her kid. This apartment is one of the nicest apartments I have ever seen. The square footage alone. No wonder you're struggling.
Yeah, especially for like New York.
It's Chicago.
Oh, well, yeah, still.
But, hey, maybe it's like rent controlled or something. There's a chance. Maybe before her, now deceased husband died, maybe they bought this apartment and they're only paying like the bills, like the who knows? But it might be a plot hole. It might not be. Andy is played by Alex Vincent, who hasn't really done much outside of some, basically this and, like Child's Play 2 and whatnot. But I will say, oh man, he should have. Because man, is this one of the cutest kid actors ever. Like, he should have had so much more work at this point in his career. Like, he is one of the cutest kids ever. And, like, for a kid actor, does a pretty darn good job. Is he perfect? Yeah. Obviously not. He's a kid actor. But he does a really good job.
For a kid actor, yeah, it's pretty darn solid.
Yeah. Because even some of the times where, which I will definitely point out when it happens, some of the times where he does, like, stumble over his lines, it just makes the line cuter. Which is weird to say, about a man who's, like, 10 years older than me. No, more than that. Like 20 years older than me. But still, nonetheless. Andy is a big fan of the Good Guy brand as he wears the pajamas, watching the cartoon that he is disappointed is a rerun. This is where I'll bring up that Good Guy, a little just fun fact section. Ooh. Good Guy dolls were based off of My Buddy dolls and Corky dolls. Also, like, the general idea of, like, the craze was also somewhat based off of the Cabbage Patch Kids, but, like, the presentation of the doll itself is more based off of those other two. And the cartoon and the Good Guy dolls' voices are voiced by Eden Gross, who also voiced the Corky doll. So, like, they got the same, like, 9-year-old kid who did the, like, Corky doll that they were somewhat basing the character off of to voice, like, whenever we have, like, the later with Chucky or in the commercial with, I think it's Oliver is the name of the Good Guy doll in the commercial. It does not matter, but that's me just trying to remember. When it talks, that is Eden Gross. And it also, apparently, I don't know if this is a fun fact. It's a weird fact and kind of funny, but I'm sure for the people involved, not fun. They ended up actually putting the company out of business that produced the Corky dolls as parents were returning the dolls because they thought something was wrong with them as they sounded like Chucky.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah. Oopsie. Eden Gross also played Flounder in the Little Mermaid animated series. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, the show is one of those classic shows that turns immediately into a commercial, because that's what kids' television is all about, is trying to sell toys to children.
To kids. Yep.
Yeah, which is actually what one of was definitely supposed to be a more heavy-handed, like, what's the word I'm looking for? But, like, more, that was supposed to be more central to the plot, like them trying to satire, like, the over consumerization of children was something Dom Messina really wanted to go deeper into. Like, the original script, Karen, who we have not met yet, but that's Andy's mom, was actually a marketing executive for the Good Guy brand. So, like, it was like an even more, like, she brought it upon herself kind of thing. But that did not actually make it into the final script. But yeah, so we're going to an ad now. Not us, in the TV show.
In the movie.
That'd be cool if we were, like, sponsored by Good Guy dolls, though. I will definitely take money from the Chucky franchise.
Oh, okay.
As I'm wearing my Chucky shirt.
Oh,
yeah.
I can't see that.
Yeah, but they can. If they're watching the video version, they can see the word Chucky, because that's about all that picks up on the top of my chest.
Look at that cool Chucky shirt he's wearing.
It's not that cool. It's a Walmart shirt.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's a commercial with a giant mascot of the Good Guy, and he talks about how now the Good Guy dolls are out, so go buy them. The mascot Good Guy is voiced by Franklin of Children of the Corn 1 and 6, Addams Family and Addams Family Values, alongside Horror Bois alum Mercedes McNabb of, would you guess it, it's Hatchet, because when in doubt, yeah. She's also in Buffy, but she's not in this movie, so I won't bring up who she is in that.
Okay.
And Tammy and the T-Rex, alongside Horror Boy alums Buck Flower, and Sean Whalen of Hatchet 3.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. But also, yeah, he's definitely most known for his role in Children of the Corn. He's Isaac.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But for some reason, the internet wants to say that it's the character was voiced by the director Tom Holland, who has a deep, gruff voice, and nothing like the voice that is so obviously the kid from Children of the Corn, who is also in the credits as being the voice of it. But for some reason, I've seen it in multiple videos and articles. Fun fact that Tom Holland voiced the Chucky mascot guy there. It's no, he didn't though. It's very obvious that he's not, and they credit who it is, and it sounds just like them. But I don't know where that rumor comes from. I tried to do a little bit of research on it, but I could not find it. But I'm here to tell you that it is not true. Maybe he played the suit in the body, and there was an article at some point or an interview where he said that, and people misconstrued it. I was never able to find that, so that's me just speculating on why these people think this. Because it is very obviously the voice of John Franklin. While this is happening, Andy is making his mom breakfast in bed which is for him. What he's making her is an overfilled good guy cereal bowl and burnt toast with a baseball-sized amount of butter.
A lot of butter. It's impressive, really.
It's also obviously very sugary kid cereal that he's adding scoops of more sugar onto.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do that with bran flakes, things that don't have a lot of flavor, and not good guy cereal that looks like it was so artificially colored and definitely full of tons of sweeteners. But hey, he's a kid. He doesn't know any better. He's only 6. It's only his 6th birthday, guys. Get off his back. He's trying to do something nice for his mom.
Yeah.
His mom, who is Karen, but does not play, what we would describe as a Karen now. But that is her name, nonetheless.
This is a different brand of Karen.
Yeah. And she is played by Catherine Hicks of Star Trek IV and Seventh Heaven. And, fun fact, has been married to Chucky designer Kevin Yeager since 1990. They've been married for 32 years. And they met on this movie. That's cool. Sick. After she tells Andy she'll eat his breakfast later, they go to open Andy's presents. Spoiler, I don't think she eats the food. When it's ever confirmed that she doesn't, but I'd be surprised if she eats any of that food.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they go to open his presents, and he's disappointed because the first one is pants. And to be fair to him, one, no kid wants pants, and definitely, why did she put those pants in such a giant good guy doll-shaped box? They did not need to be in that big of a box. They were a pair of pants. She does also give him some toys in a good guy tool chest, but he is still disappointed because he really wants a good guy doll to go with it. But she didn't know about it in time to save up for one that month.
She's poor, guys. Remember? Yeah. Poor.
Except for the giant house she's in.
What?
Also, I saw. Actually, I don't know what to say. Don't worry about it. Just, I had a fact I was going to bring up, but I don't think it's been a fact, so I'm just going to move on.
Okay.
Yeah. I should cut that. I won't.
No.
We head to Carson Pierce Scott & Co. Or, no, not Pierce. Peary, sorry. Carson Peary Scott & Co., which is the department store where Karen works at. She works at the jewelry counter. And her co-worker and friend, Maggie Peterson, convinces her to go out back to see a peddler about a good guy doll. Maggie is played by Dina Minoff of Grease, alongside the director of photography, Bill Butler. That's cool. The peddler is played by Juan Ramirez, who he looks really familiar, but I couldn't find anything that I'd heard of that he was in. He wants 50 for the doll, but they're able to get it down to 30. That's basically the scene. He's kind of vulgar to, Maggie. That's the scene.
Yeah.
Back upstairs, Karen is reprimanded by her boss, Mr. Criswell, for leaving her counter unattended. Which, to be fair, later in this scene, he's kind of a jerk, but that actually, kind of fair, honestly.
Yeah.
Mr. Criswell is played by Alan Wilder of Poltergeist 3 and Home Alone. He's in Home Alone. That's cool.
Yeah.
He tells her she has to come back to work that night after picking up Andy from daycare, even though it's, Andy's birthday. So Maggie agrees to watch Andy for her. A little bit later, after she picks him up from daycare at the house, Karen gives Andy his good guy doll, who says the iconic line, "Hi, I'm Chucky. I'm your friend to the end. Heidi-ho, ha ha ha." That line is ingrained in my brain because of this franchise,
Heidi-ho.
And it's a great line. And that is, the voice of whatever the actor's name was. I don't remember. I'm not flipping back.
Fair enough.
We cut to later when Aunt Maggie is watching Andy. Andy is playing with his tools, but Chucky seems distracted by the news of Eddie Caputo escaping the precinct. Which I'll bring it up here, just because I don't know where else to bring it up, but this is kind of the first time as you see him, look away, but, I think this movie does such a great job and deserves such a high credit for, the first, half of this movie making you wonder if Andy is the one doing this stuff. Obviously, yes, we know, because we're watching this franchise after there's a franchise. But the way it's presented, and even if you're watching it for the first time, you're like, well, he obviously did that, voodoo on the doll. But they don't show the doll do it in, a very well done way where you kind of start to wonder for a second, is Andy the guilty one? Probably not, but could he be? I just think it deserves a lot of credit for such a good job of, obviously I didn't at all think, oh, he did it, because I knew what I was getting into. But I do think it still deserves credit nonetheless.
I don't know. I think it was clever, writing / directing.
Yeah. Actually, I believe it is somewhat of editing, actually.
The actual
movie was, I believe, initially, Tom Holland's cut was 2 hours long, and David Kirshner and Don Mancini, which is really weird that a producer and a writer were so heavily involved. The producer not so much, but that a writer got to be so heavily involved with the editing process, kind of adding to the relationship they built that has become what the Chucky franchise is at this point. But yeah, so initially I believe there was supposed to be a lot more visual Chucky stuff happening in the initial cut, but they cut out a lot of that to kind of build suspense. And I think it was a really smart decision, because I think it really, one, it wasn't a 2 hour movie that even if I love a 2 hour movie, I would dread having to watch it.
That's entirely fair.
Especially as for a podcast. I'm just watching a movie, if it's 2 hours, I can enjoy it. But if I'm doing podcast notes on anything over an hour 30 exactly, I go, hour 35 movie, really? Why couldn't you be an hour 24?
Yeah.
But yeah, Maggie tells Andy to get ready for bed. Chucky whispers to Andy. We don't know what he says, but we just see Andy putting his head over to it, which once again adds to the whole is this kid just thinking he's hearing a toy talk? You don't know, because you don't see or hear it fully right now. And Andy tells Maggie that Chucky wants to watch the 9 o'clock news. And Maggie says no and turns off the TV and carries them to Andy's room. Andy brushes his teeth while Aunt Maggie puts away the dishes, which really shows Aunt Maggie, really good friend. She in no way has to put away the dishes while she's babysitting. That's going above and beyond. She's doing the household chores? That's crazy. I would never if I was babysitting for someone.
Yeah.
That's not my job. I'm watching your kid.
Yeah, I'm already doing enough.
Yeah. Probably not for any money. You're poor. Except for this, giant, really nice house. Yeah, she's putting away dishes. She's startled by the TV turning on as Chucky is on the couch as the news begins to play. That's curious. She turns it off and takes Chucky back to a very confused Andy, who she tells him he needs to, learn to listen to her. And Andy keeps insisting that he didn't do what she says he did. He didn't take Chucky out there. He was brushing his teeth, After she leaves, Andy tells Chucky, "I told you she'd be mad if you watched the news." And he goes to sleep. As we zoom in to the face, into Chucky's face. But nothing happens. Because he's just a doll, maybe, at this point. We don't know.
Yeah.
Later in the night, Aunt Maggie is reading when someone, it's Chucky, but as I already said, but in my notes I wrote it here, I respect the tension of one making you wonder, is it Andy running past? Fun fact, I don't remember the child's name, but the actual person in this scene playing Chucky running across the screen real fast was apparently like the producer's neighbor's 2-year-old kid. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because they've snuck out of Andy's room, and he runs behind her in this really cool scurrying scene.
Yeah.
She hears a chair be moved. She gets up to go investigate. And which she assumes is Andy. She locks the front door and hears a loud sound in the kitchen and goes to investigate. She sees the flour has been knocked onto the floor. And that's it. She dies of shock from the flour being knocked. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what happens.
Oh, is that true?
No, she doesn't even die at all. Totally. Definitely not this scene, though. Because the phone rings. She's startled by the phone. And she answers it, and it's Ghostface! Actually, it's Karen. Calling to check in on Andy. Maggie starts to clean up the mess when she hears a noise again by the potted plants. But there's nothing there. Guess she's just, hearing things. So she turns around and takes a good guy hammer to the eye before stumbling back and falling out the window.
Falling out of the window, yeah.
Yep, falling to her death on a truck down below. It's like a 7 or 8 story building, too. It's a crazy fall. She's dead. She's definitely dead.
Yeah.
Cut to a little bit later where Karen comes home, and for some reason no one questions her. She crosses the police tape. She just walking into a crime scene. No, not one cop even goes hey, what are you doing? Not up until she gets all the way upstairs, about to go into her house or her apartment. We'll see, home is where the heart is, so it's her home. We'll go with home.
Fair enough.
Yeah, she's about to go in. Then finally someone says something to her, questions what she's doing. She's like, "Oh, it's my house or whatever." And that's enough. No further questions. Oh, all right, fine. Yeah. Walk right into a crime scene.
Oh yeah, her house. Yeah.
The person who asked this is Jack Santos, who is played by Tommy Swerdlow of Spaceballs and Howard the Duck. So, prolific career there. Spaceballs is great. I haven't seen Howard the Duck, but I have not heard great things.
Yeah.
Yeah, once inside, she finds Andy in his room with Detective Norris. And Andy tells her that Aunt Maggie had an accident. Detective Norris and Karen step out, and he confirms that Aunt Maggie is dead, and shows her footprints on the counter. But they don't match any of Andy's shoes in his closet, so there's nothing to worry about there. But then, Andy comes to the kitchen, because Chucky wants to know what's going on. Karen tells him to go back to bed. But before he can, Detective Norris notices Andy's good guy PJ sneakers. And how the soles match the footprints.
But there's no flower on them.
Yeah. So maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I was a little curious, though. I don't know if Detective Norris has completely ruled out Andy's involvement here. Karen does not appreciate the accusation towards her child, and asks Detective Norris to leave. So because she's been through a lot and she wants to mourn her friend and be with her child, which somehow that's enough for Detective Norris to go, "You're right. Nope. This is no longer a crime scene. You're sad." Which I don't know if that's how that works. I guess maybe they just happen to be done when she tells him they should leave.
Be nice.
Yeah. He starts to round up all the cops to get out. Inside his room, Andy notices there's flour on Chucky's soles, and runs to tell his mom and Detective Norris in an adorable, stumbling over his words delivery that he knows Chucky was on the counter. On his way out, Detective Norris asks Karen to call him in kind of a little bit of a flirtatious way. I guess he's got the hots for this girl whose friend just died. That's very professional.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Doesn't he know she's going to marry Kevin Yeager?
Probably not, no.
Oh, that's fair. Oh, you're right, because he doesn't actually exist in this world.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, he's a real person.
Oh. Really?
And this is a movie, which is, believe it or not, fictitious.
I thought this was a documentary.
Yeah, this isn't a biopic. I'm sorry.
Are you sure?
I'm 99% sure, yeah.
Oh, alright, if you say so. Outside, Detective Norris tells Jack to take the hammer to the lab as it's a possible murder weapon, which Jack thinks is crazy. Which I feel like it'd be pretty either obvious that it was or it wasn't by the blood probably should have been on it. And then he wouldn't be like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Because there definitely should be some sort of, blood or something on it probably from... But, I guess there wasn't somehow. Or, I don't know. Maybe...
For reasons.
Maybe Chucky cleaned it off.
Oh, yeah.
But, didn't get rid of it. So he's not the best criminal.
Well, he was a strangler, not a hammerer.
Well, as we will find out. Besides maybe the one time in this movie where he, spoiler, tries to strangle one guy at the end, he doesn't really strangle anyone at all in this franchise ever, which makes me wonder where that name comes from.
Maybe he was a fan of strangling himself,
Oh.
I don't know.
Oh, maybe. I don't want to think about that. I'm going to move on.
Yeah, that's fair.
Karen overhears Andy talking to Chucky in his room and goes in to check on him. She asks him if Chucky's been talking to him too, and Andy says that yes, he has. His real name's Charles Lee Ray, and he's sent from heaven from his dad to play with him, and that Aunt Maggie was a real bad witch of a woman who got what she deserved. Fun fact, little Alex Vincent, when he was auditioning for this role, wasn't comfortable saying this line, so he kept saying he forgot it, and I kept being like, "Oh, well, it's this," and he did at least 2 times before they got to it the 3rd time, and he's like, "I just didn't feel comfortable saying it," and he thinks that's part of why he got the part was because he convinced them so well of him actually forgetting the line, so they're like, "Oh, he's a good actor, obviously." Also, I guess fun fact, just because I brought up, stories about, little Alex Vincent. Alex Vincent's also been, quoted in a bunch of interviews saying that he was never scared of Chucky because whenever they yelled cut, he would stop trying to kill him. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Karen gets real upset about him, just calling her friend and the woman who just died, not so savory word. He's like, "How would you say something like that?" And he keeps saying, "Well, Chucky said it, and I didn't say it, and also Chucky's alive." And but For eventually, he does say that he's sorry for making up stories because, he sees that he's upset his mom. So he lies to her to make her feel better.
Yeah. Because for some reason, she doesn't believe him that there's a possessed doll.
I know, right? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, ridiculous, really.
This is like in all these horror movies where the parents can never just be on their kid's side.
Yeah.
Yeah, how dare he make up a lie about a killer doll? I mean, yeah, that's fair, actually.
Yeah.
She tucks him and Chucky in for bed, and leaves, but stays listening to the door. And Andy tells Chucky he's right. She didn't believe me. And Chucky looks over the door and sees Karen's shadow, and responds with the good guy line, "I like to be hugged." Which, shows, which is just such a cool moment, I feel like. It was just, showing how smart Chucky is. As being like, oh, I'm not going to out myself right now. I'm just going to say the generic line, because she's listening, and I know she's listening. I love that.
Yeah.
In the morning, Karen drops Andy and Chucky off at school after checking to make sure that, he's up for it. You're good, right? Your aunt-like figure died yesterday, but you're fine, right? You're good?
Yeah.
You're good? We're good? All right, cool. You just go to school. No trauma.
Yeah.
But don't worry. He's not going to actually stay at school. Wait, actually, that is a reason to worry. Because, he immediately ditches school and takes the train to the, seedy part of, the south side of town. I believe it actually is in, the south side of Chicago is where this part is. And they arrive outside Eddie Caputo's house.
Is basically just a rundown.
Yeah, it's like
2-story.
It's like
house.
A crack house, kind of almost. It's where maybe more where Eddie's been known to squat than where he lives.
Yeah.
Andy leaves Chucky in a rocking chair to go tinkle. His words, not mine. While he pees, Chucky, in a POV shot, sneaks into Eddie's place. Inside the rat-infested place, Chucky turns on the oven, blows out the pilot light, and opens the oven door. Eddie hears this, and after a little bit of a prolonged, him looking around scene, he eventually goes into the kitchen and shoots immediately once he gets in the kitchen, which causes the place to explode, killing him. And this really cool, practical explosion, where it looks like you can obviously tell that, this is pre-CGI, so they just, destroyed a building. Hey, it's cool.
That is very much.
I like when buildings go boom. But yeah. We had Karen showing up at the police station because she got a message from Detective Norris. We then head inside a room where Jack is questioning Andy about how Maggie died and why they were at Eddie Caputo's before Detective Norris and Karen come in. Which I will just say, I'm pretty sure they're breaking the law. I do not believe you're allowed to question a child without a parent
without
and
a
lawyer present.
Yeah. Nope, absolutely not.
Yeah, you definitely have to have her there and have her decide that it's okay for the lawyer not to be there. But hey, whatever.
This is Chicago. They do things differently.
And it's not like they even there's not like there's even a lawyer in the room. Hey, they provided him a lawyer, so here's a lawyer who doesn't know the story and doesn't care. He's just asking this kid questions did Aunt Maggie die again? Oh, yeah, Chucky did it. Oh, is that why is Chucky visiting, Eddie Caputo right now? Which also another thing, I get it. Why would anyone think that the doll was involved? Because it's a doll.
But also, why would a kid
Why would the kid be going to kill Eddie Caputo? Maybe in a fit of anger or something he killed his, aunt-like figure in Aunt Maggie. But why did he go downtown to kill Eddie Caputo, a guy he's never heard of, unless he watched the news? Yeah. I gotta go kill that, Lakeshore Strangler's accomplice, Eddie Caputo.
It's definitely, one of the bigger plot holes in this movie.
Yeah.
It's this kid has literally no reason to kill this guy.
Yeah, no, why would he? But hey,
let alone know who he is.
Yeah. And it's
or
not like,
where
oh,
he would be hiding out.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he was even close. Like, he went down, like, took a long train.
Out of his way.
Yeah, he
Very
went
much
out of his way. It's
way.
like oh, maybe he accidentally just had fun and blew up someone on accident.
Nope.
No. This is premeditated by a doll. But...
Yeah.
But
they're very sure that it is this child.
Yeah.
This evil
Which,
genius.
to be fair, he is the only person who's been present at both. I guess at the same point, though, you would have to assume it was him, because you're not going to believe a doll theory, because that's insanity.
Insanity.
So, like, why else would this kid have been there for some reason he wasn't killing Eddie Caputo? To be fair to the cops, like, you're right, it doesn't make sense, but why was he there then?
I think at the very least they should have been, like, asking about who he's been talking to.
Sure.
Like, maybe he's being led by another adult.
Yeah, but if he just keeps saying, maybe that was in the scene right before he came in. You know, they came in and he's like, oh yeah, Chucky. And they keep going, this kid's saying his doll's telling him to kill these people. I don't know what to do. You know?
And if that was the case, and it just got cut out in editing.
Which, to be fair, once again, 2-hour cut of the movie initially. Maybe that line was in there at some point.
Very much possible.
But yeah, so Karen tells Andy that no one believes him about Chucky, and they're going to take him away unless he starts telling the truth. So Andy very emotionally pleads with Chucky to say something. And Chucky says, "Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end. Heidi-ho." So Andy punches him in the gut and tells his mom that he's doing it on purpose, and that he told me never to tell about him or he'd kill me. Once again, all of these lines from him are just delivered either genuinely really well done emotional acting, which you don't expect Loki to do, or superly adorably cute as he stumbles over like the more expositional lines. This is like top tier child actor. Either really good or at least so adorable I can't dislike.
Can't be mad at it.
Yeah. And he does both in like alternating in the same scene.
Yeah.
Over the speaker, Dr. Ardmore says he's seen enough and wants to admit him into County General. Dr. Ardmore is played by the late Jack Kelvin of the Incredible Hulk TV show.
Woo.
Yeah. I mean, he was in like 80-something episodes of it. So, like, if you're a fan of that show, you would probably recognize him as if you watch this movie as well.
I'd imagine so, yeah. That's a lot of episodes.
Yeah. It wasn't like he was in a few episodes. He was like, it looked like a pretty main character.
He was in the show.
Yeah. Karen takes Chucky home, and she angrily pleads with him to say something. So he says, "I like to be hugged." She has a "I'm going crazy" laugh about it, and goes to the kitchen where she finds the batteries for Chucky are still in the box.
Man, that's such a good moment.
It really is. It's a scene that goes on for probably 5 times as long as I just said it there, but that's what happens, and I don't want to not do it justice. It is a really well done shot scene, and she's gonna throw out the box and they fall out, her realization. So yeah, she has to go confirm what she's seeing though, so she goes to check on Chucky and opens his back to find that he does have no batteries. And he turns his head around and says, "Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?" So she drops him and he rolls under the couch. She peeks at him on the ground. Pokes at him on the ground, but he seems lifeless. So she shakes him and demands him to talk to her. He doesn't, obviously. Also, a fun little anecdote. The actress who played Karen, I'm blanking on her name.
Star Trek lady.
Yeah, Star Trek 4 lady.
Yeah, I understand.
Karen. Whatever. I should have just kept going, but I wanted to give the actress herself credit because it was a line. It was something she said in an interview.
All right.
I can't find her. But, probably Mrs. Yeager now, I would assume, has said in an interview that when she would try to play on these scenes
Catherine Hicks.
Catherine, yes. Catherine Hicks said that she would just imagine like a snake, that she was looking for a snake because she's terrified of snakes, and that was what got her in the mindset of like showing scared acting when she was dealing with Chucky. So she's like, oh, there's a snake under this couch, and she's going to peek under it, is how she would get herself in the mental right mind space to play scared for these scenes.
Huh.
But yeah, so when he doesn't talk, she starts a fire in the fireplace and threatens to throw him in the fire, which breaks his act as he starts cursing at her and starts attacking her, including biting her arm, before she throws him off. He runs away into the elevator. She chases him down the stairs, like as he's going down the elevator, so she's like circling him on the stairs as it goes down. But he is able to escape. The elevator was faster than on the stairs.
So yeah, she really got to work on her cardio.
She does. Come on, Karen. Get your crap together, Karen.
Yeah, jeez.
Karen takes a cab to the police station and catches Detective Norris as he's leaving. She tells him about how Chucky's alive and how he has no batteries and shows him the bite mark, but he thinks she's crazy. Yeah. So she leaves to go to the peddler she got it from. And he's like, you can't go over there. It's a bad time of night. Or I guess you can't go to that side of town.
In this part of night.
Yeah. You can't go to the bad part of town at this time of night. Not a bad time of night.
Yeah.
But yeah. I will say there's a lot of scenes like that where more dialogue happens and all the actors involved do a really good job like playing the drama. But it's hard to explain like dramatic scenes in writing, so some of those scenes I will skip over with like the important beats like that, but it is still a very good scene. There's a montage of her asking around to find the peddler.
And then she does.
Yeah, she eventually does find him, and he wants a bribe for the information on where he got the doll, but when the money she has isn't enough, he's about to force himself onto her, but thankfully Detective Norris shows up and saves the day by kneeing him in the groin. Detective Norris then gets the peddler to tell him where he got the doll from, and he says it's from a burned down toy store, and then he gives the street name that I did not write down because that does not matter. But it does matter to Norris because he, sends him away after that. It definitely has like a shocked look on his face. And Karen asks him why he reacted like that. And he says that it was because that's where Charles Lee Ray died. She doesn't know who that is. She should remember that she heard her kids say that Chucky was that name, but apparently in this moment she does not. He tells her that he was the Lakeshore Strangler and Eddie Caputo's partner. So she goes to head to the store, but he tells her that there's nothing there, and it was how he was struck by lightning the night he killed Charles Lee Ray. So now she knows what his involvement. Excuse me. And then he also offers to take her home, and while they're walking to the car, she asks if Charles said anything else. And he says yes, he threatened to kill him and Eddie Caputo. And they head off to her house. Karen is sure Chucky is Charles Lee Ray and wants to go to his house, but Detective Norris doesn't believe her and isn't worried about Chucky because, he's sane and rational, as he says, which, fair, honestly. I mean, until you see the doll, anyone who goes, you're crazy for saying that the doll's alive, I think is fair. Because
it's valid.
I'm pretty sure that doesn't happen in real life. Despite what those, charlatans, the Warrens, would tell you. Oh, did I say that? Oh, oops, my bad.
Whoa.
And if you are someone who doesn't understand that reference, the Warrens were real life people who were portrayed in the Conjuring films as people who basically like went around probably taking advantage of people, telling them their houses were like haunted or like demonically possessed and stuff, including a doll named Annabelle, who has their own whole franchise under that universe.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, screw the Warrens. I'll say it. Lost my place though, because I started talking about the Warrens for no reason. I mean, it was actually a really good pivot into talking about them, but I wasn't planning it at all. Sane and rational. That's the words I need to be looking for.
Yeah, he was sane and rational, and then they part.
And he leaves her very He leaves her. She's very angry, because he wouldn't help her. He also doesn't seem to be worried about the fact that well, if Eddie Caputo's dead, that means he's next if Chucky's really coming after them. But, he's sane and rational. Is like, this is a coincidence that Eddie Caputo died. I saw Charles Lee Ray dead, and there's no way that he's in a doll. But, maybe it wasn't... He's not fully on her side, because he is going to the station to get the file on Charles Lee Ray. So he is at least a little curious about her theory, because he's not fully, like, taking it out of his mindset. And he leaves with it. He starts to probably drive home. We don't know where he's driving to. But while he's starting to drive, he starts his car lighter, because he's going to light up a cigarette. But before he gets a chance to light it up, Chucky pops up behind him and chokes him with some cords or cables of some sort.
Yeah.
Norris gets him off by burning his face with the lighter. Chucky starts to stab at him through the seat, with Norris moving out of the way at the last second each time. All this is happening while Detective Norris is still driving crazily on a real cool car stunts, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool reckless driving stunts. I don't know exactly what they're called. It's like a chase scene, but there's no chase involved. So I don't. It's shot in a way that a chase scene would typically be shot, but no one's actually chasing him. So I don't know what you would describe how it's shot. I don't know why he's not just pulling over. It could make his whole life a whole lot easier. We do find out in a little bit when he tries to finally hit the brakes. He's not able to because Chucky is holding down the gas now. But he wasn't while he was stabbing him, or when he burnt his face, or even while he was choking and was still driving for some reason.
Yeah.
There were definitely times where he probably should have stopped the car, but he doesn't because cool action scene.
Yeah, no,
cool action scene's got a cool action scene, guys.
Pretty much.
Which, to be fair, reason. If I wasn't analyzing this movie for a podcast, you know what I didn't think the first time I watched this movie last year? Why is he still driving? It was only when I was taking notes for it when I think like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and while he's holding down the gas, it makes him keep going faster, and eventually Norris hits a dumpster, flipping over the car in a cool car stunt. Chucky gets out of the car and he runs around for a little bit while Norris tries to shoot him, but he can't for a while.
And he keeps running around a little bit.
Yeah. Eventually he does shoot Chucky, hurting him, which Chucky didn't think was possible. He says, you can't hurt me, and then he does shoot him and it hurts him, so Chucky leaves.
Runs away.
Yeah. We head to Karen at Charles Lee Ray's apartment, where there are these murals on the walls about voodoo and thanking Damballa for life after death.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of Candyman.
To be fair, Candyman came out 2 years later, so Candyman was very reminiscent of Child's Play.
Fair enough.
Unless, to be fair, I don't know if... Because Candyman was based off of a short story by... I'm blanking on the man who did it. I think it's the same guy who did Hellraiser. I think it might be Clive Barker, but I could be wrong.
Might be.
But if even so,
either way, they are both based.
Which to me means they might both be based off of real murals you do sometimes find in Chicago, seedy places, because maybe I don't know. But to be fair, if one movie inspired the other, it would be this inspiring Candyman, because that was either 90 or 91. It was definitely after 88.
So it was 91.
But yeah, so she's looking around. As she looks on, someone kind of lurks in behind her in the shadows. But who could it be? Oh, it's just Detective Norris. It's played like it's going to be something else and like dramatic. But it's
also,
not.
we know it's not Chucky.
Yeah, it's definitely not Chucky.
A very small silhouette.
Yeah. And he tells her that, Charles's nickname was Chucky, and he hung out with this, voodoo master guy, doctor of voodoo doctor, if you will, who's in the mural, and he shows her a picture of him. We head to the voodoo doctor, John Dr. Death Bishop's house. He is played by Ray Oliver of Forbidden World. That was another horror movie he was in. Chucky shows up and asks why he's able to bleed now. Dr. Death says it's because he's turning human, and says he won't help Chucky because he's an abomination. Chucky uses a voodoo doll to break Dr. Death's leg and arm, which gets him to tell him how to get out of his doll body. Dr. Death tells him he has to transfer his soul into the person he first told he was alive. Chucky thinks it's hilarious. He's going to live life from being six again. So Chucky says he has to go because he's got a date with a 6-year-old boy, while John has a date with death. And he stabs the voodoo doll, seemingly killing him, and overall, yes, killing him, but technically not killing him yet, as we'll find out in the next scene. He stays alive for a little bit longer. Fun fact also, Don Mancini thought the whole voodoo part of this story was stupid. It was not part of his initial vision, and he thinks it's really opens up a lot of plot holes of well, wait, why wouldn't a serial killer just have voodoo dolls of everyone he wants to kill? Why are we adding this whole different type of magic in here? And he was not a fan of it. But at the same point, though, he does keep some of the voodoo elements throughout the rest of the franchise, so he didn't hate it enough to try to ignore it. Yeah, but he did think it. This is, I believe, the last time we ever see a voodoo doll specifically, though.
Okay.
And maybe
he didn't like the voodoo doll.
At the very least, he definitely really doesn't like voodoo dolls for the serial killer, which fair. That does kind of lead to why wouldn't he just make more voodoo dolls of everyone?
Yeah.
But it is what it is. The voodoo specifically was a very big, Tom Holland wanted to use the voodoo. It was a big thing he added to the script when he was helping write it. So you can either thank or blame Tom Holland for it if you like the voodoo or not. Karen and Detective Norris show up, and John is still clinging to life and tells Karen to stop Chucky before he's able to say the chant by destroying his heart. Or, as he says his last time, he says his heart, and he stops before he can fully say it. It's a good thing he said it 3 times before, so you wouldn't know what he was saying. Yeah. We head to the hospital, where Andy sees Chucky outside and begs Dr. Ardmore for help, but is ignored in a really brutally painful emotional scene of just huge props to Alex Vincent for his child acting here, because the way he cries, he's like, I'm gonna die, it was emotional, and the kid was 8. That's crazy how much emotion he was able to play in this scene.
Yeah. I've
seen seasoned actors who don't make me feel like they're as scared as this kid's scared right now. And like we've said, he said in interviews, he wasn't ever scared in real life. This is all acting.
Yeah. I would say that his acting was solid throughout the entire movie, in my opinion, especially for a kid actor. But in this scene especially, I was like, holy crap, dude.
Yeah.
This kid is killing it.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Wholeheartedly. Yeah.
But yeah, we cut to Chucky, who steals some keys and goes to Andy's room. Inside, He gets onto Andy's bed, about to kill him, but it's just a pillow diversion. So Andy escapes and out the door. Andy hides. Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy hides in an exam room, is what I'm going to call it. I don't know exactly what it's supposed to be. Operation room. He's hiding in some sort of other more medical side of the hospital room. But Chucky gets the jump on him, and they knock over this like little metal table where all like the scalpels are on. I'm sure there's a specific name for that in a hospital, but I don't know it. So they knock that over. And Andy arms himself with a scalpel, but Chucky has rolled away and is hiding somewhere. And then Andy stumbles backward over some machinery in more just adorable, like, just the way he, like, it's just so simple, but just, like, it's so cute seeing this little kid, like, stumble backwards, and, like, it's just, it's great. Yeah. I love this movie. Spoiler, I love this movie.
Sorry.
Dr. Ardmore, comes in and is about to sedate Andy as Andy keeps saying Chucky's there and he's trying to kill him. Chucky runs up and stabs Dr. Ardmore in the back of the leg before shocking him, his brain with like the electroshock, and he shocks him to death. Which kind of shows that maybe that machine's maybe a little too strong. If it could kill someone that easily. Just saying. Seems like maybe there's something wrong there, but alright. Andy's able to run away while Chucky's kind of like enjoying the kill because he is a serial killer. Karen and Detective Norris show up and find out about what happened, and head to the Barkley house because that's where Andy would go. At the apartment. At the apartment, Andy barricades himself in with like pushing a bench in front of it, and also throwing a sled that he has there next to it, also in the pile. Before, and then we cut to a quick funny scene of an old lady calling Chucky an ugly doll, and him cursing at her for it. It's like a funny little scene. There's nothing. It's not much, but he says F you to her. Oh, I mean, she doesn't hear it, but
yeah.
We, the audience, hear him say.
Does confirm him as the funniest killer.
Yeah, I mean,
and inadvertently.
I mean,
because this is, I think, the first like written joke that I've laughed at. Well, aside from like Ghostface, but
yeah,
I do enjoy Ghostface. But in terms of like,
I feel like
a serial killer
in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Freddy has some funny lines, but that's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he tells her, F you. And I mean, mostly for our enjoyment.
Yeah.
Andy hides in his closet in front of his Muppet Babies Playhouse. I just wanted to point that out because it was cool. And
Muppet Babies.
It's also like something you like can't find that item at all on the internet, which normally you would be able to find it for like a lot of money or something. You can find some old like ads for it, like black and white ads are all you can find outside of like this scene in this movie. It's crazy. Yeah. Before arming himself with a bat. Chucky does a Santa impression by coming down the fireplace. Chucky is predominantly a puppet, sometimes rod puppet, sometimes animatronic. There's like 9 different variations of puppets they use throughout the movie. But in this scene specifically, and a few we've already had, and a few we will have, Chucky is played by Ed Gale in a suit. Ed Gale was also in Spaceballs, Howard the Duck as Howard the Duck, Phantasm, and is technically a Horror Boy alumni because he did some stunts in New Nightmare.
That's time.
Yeah. But he's also I mean, obviously if he's playing a doll, he is a little person, but as a little person, he was still bigger than the doll. So whenever like there were scenes with him, they had versions of the set that were 30% bigger. Like everything in the room was like produced to be 30 seconds bigger, so he wouldn't look too big in them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
There is definitely at least one more time where I will specifically bring up a scene he is in because it's an important one, but we'll get to that. Andy leaves his closet, bat in hand, but Chucky pops out yelling, "Surprise!" So Andy misses his swing. Chucky chases him through the apartment into the living room, where he hits him from behind, saying, "Batter up!" knocking Andy out in his first ever pun. But not his last. He will have more puns throughout this franchise. But this is the first one. So.
First pun.
Yep.
Batter up.
Outside. It's also the bat hitting him in the back of the head did knock him out, obviously. Outside, Karen and Detective Norris show up and run inside. Chucky starts to do his, Ade Due Dumbala incantation, causing a storm outside. But Karen and Norris get in through the blockade before Chucky is able to finish. And Karen takes Chucky off Andy, and Norris throws him across the room. But Chucky runs back and cuts the back of Detective Norris's leg and runs away. He is like old people used to always call little kids ankle biters. Chucky is like an ankle biter in a way, as he stabs everyone in the ankles.
More of an ankle slicer, though.
Yeah, but that's not a term.
Fine,
he's an ankle slicer and arm biter. It just doesn't work as well.
Sorry.
Detective Norris gives Karen his second gun and goes looking for Chucky with his first gun. He checks under Karen's bed, giving a hiding Chucky a chance to run up from behind and ram the bat into Norris's ribs, and then swing it at his head, knocking him out. Karen comes in and shoots Chucky in the leg, but the gun jams, so she can't finish him off. So Chucky chases her to the living room, where she hits her leg on the coffee table, giving him the chance to get on top of her, but she fights him off, throwing him into the fireplace. I'll also bring out here just a complaint that I've heard people have about Child's Play is they're like, "Oh, why don't you just kick him?" I feel like in this scene is a great example of he's obviously very strong. He is holding her down. He's not just a doll. He has the strength of a man.
Yeah, of a full-grown man.
Yeah.
A full-grown strangler, one might say.
Well, I mean, not that much, actually.
One might say that.
One might call him that, even though he's more of a stabber and slicer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's even, spoiler, in the Chucky TV show, we get some flashbacks, and you know what we don't ever see him do? Strangle anyone. What we do see him do? Cut a bunch of people up in different ways. It's almost like he wasn't a Lakeshore Strangler.
More like the Lakeshore Slasher.
Oh, Lakeshore.
Yeah, I like Slasher.
Yeah, Slasher's better. Lakeshore Stabby Guy. That's what I'm
That is a term that people use.
I mean...
And a genre that exists as well.
That's fair.
That's some pizzazz.
Alright, fine. So yeah, she throws him into the fireplace. After a moment, Andy registers what's going on and is about to light the fireplace for her when Chucky says, "Andy, no, please. We're friends to the end, remember?" To which Andy replies, "This is the end.
This is the
friend."
end.
Great line. I love it. And he drops the match in, lighting Chucky up. Chucky gets out of the fireplace and runs around in the living room in a cool fire stunt done by Ed Gale. But yeah, so he runs around before falling down, presumably, dead. So they leave him for dead to go check on, Detective Norris. Karen sends Andy to the kitchen for the first aid kit, but Chucky's burnt body is gone? Huh?
Bum, bum.
Andy runs to go tell them, but is tripped in the hall by Chucky, who's all cool and melty now.
Yeah.
And he's able to get
Wild.
he's able to get to his mom's room though, and Karen tries to keep him out, but he cuts her hand, and then like tries to cut her head up, like stab her through the door into her head a couple times, but doesn't ever hit her. Eventually, Chucky chases Karen and Andy into the hall, where Karen shoots off his head, an arm, and a leg before 2 shots in the back, finally stopping him from moving. At this point, Jack shows up, and seeing what's happened to Norris, calls an ambulance. Norris tells Jack that Andy was right, Chucky's alive, and Jack, doesn't believe him, and brings Chucky's head into the room, after Norris warned him not to touch it.
Yeah.
And Jack repeatedly, hits Chucky's head, being like, he's obviously dead. What are you talking? You're a crazy person. And then Chucky's body grabs him on the throat from a vent behind him, and Chucky yells on like a cheerleader almost for his body. It's funny. It's like, yeah, strangle him, yeah, choke him, rip his throat out, and stuff like that. Which is one of the few times, and the only time in this movie at least, and maybe there's a couple of times here or there, that I would argue that, he's actually being a Lakeshore Strangler in any way, really.
Yeah.
I guess for a lot of the times when he tackles people, he does look like he might be going for their throat. But spoiler, this is the only movie where he's at all a Lakeshore Strangler. Oops.
Whoopsies.
But yeah, he's getting choked out by Chucky, so Karen is able to come over and get the body off of Jack and throws it down. And Detective Norris shoots him in the heart, finally killing Chucky for this movie at least. Jack and Norris joke about how nobody's going to believe them as we head to the credits with a out-of-place dramatic freeze frame of Andy looking at Chucky. Yeah, it totally feels out of place in this movie. But, hey, it's there. One last thing before final thoughts.
Final thoughts?
We have something I like to do sometimes. Let's talk about our budget and how much the movie made. This movie had a $9 million budget and made almost just shy of $45 million at the box office. So, a little bit of a success, if you will.
Yeah, just a fair bit, yeah.
But yeah, so now it's time for final thoughts. I love this movie, which is so insane to say. Especially, my parents especially think it's crazy how much I like Chucky now. Because Chucky was the one thing, that terrified me the most about, horror and, horror. I thought of Chucky terrified me for most of my life. Into my adult life, it still really creeped me out, and I did not like it. But, yeah, I love this movie. I believe I'd have to rethink about every movie I've seen since I made this, but earlier in this year I made a top 20 horror movies list, and this was number 3 for me. I love this movie. This movie is amazing. I love the acting from everyone involved. I think the story is really well done. Credit to the 4 people who were kind of involved with coming up with the story on this movie.
Yeah, definitely a collaborative effort.
But they did come together to make a really good idea here. I think the effects are really fun, especially huge props to Chucky's effects. Yeah, they were, technology was getting better, but this is still this movie was made in '88, and partially because they chose to make the character a doll that came to life. The animatronics still hold up as really working for this character to feel believable in this world as a cool killer in this world. I love it. Yeah, I think that's the gist. It's a great movie. Great, well written, well shot. There's a couple very small plot holes, I pointed out while we were going through this, but for me personally, none of those even actually show up as I'm actually trying to just watch the movie to enjoy it. This movie is another one of probably 3 movies I'd call near perfect. So to the point of nothing can truly be perfect, I'd call perfect with Scream, Halloween, and this. I love these movies. I love this whole franchise too, but this one is definitely, in my opinion, the best of the franchise.
Yeah, I'd say that is a pretty fair, judgment. Because, like you said, there's a few plot holes, but they're especially like if you're just watching this movie for fun, are totally overlookable. Just at a casual viewing. Um, but outside of that, like the acting is phenomenal. The story is pretty solid all throughout. And I think the concept for this movie is uh, kind of genius. Because it pulls from like dolls in that kind of level of uncanny valley where it looks real, but it also is like very clearly not real. Um, and then they're like, no, but actually it's alive. And also it wants to kill you. uh, and I think this movie, especially anyone who did watch this as a kid, it's that much more terrifying because now you're viewing it through the eyes of another child. And so now it's not just scary doll, but also scary doll who's trying to pin murders on you. Uh, and now it's like, that's the double, like, your parents don't believe you and but you are right. And you gotta, oh, yeah, I love it. It's so good. Uh, and to this day, dolls still unsettle me. But I do love this franchise. Or, well, I love this movie. Well, we'll see if I love this franchise. Because I actually haven't seen most of the Child's Play movies.
Yeah,
But
I think you're
I'm
in
very
for a
much
treat
looking
for a
forward to
lot of
watching
them.
it.
But, there are differing opinions on a few of them, so we'll see, I personally am of the mindset that there is not a bad one. That's right. Come at me, people who hate Seed of Chucky. I still liked it.
I do now have the Blu-ray collection.
Yeah.
Arrived today in the mail. And
Ooh.
it is pretty cool. It's got a little... it's not holographic. What do you call it? It's like where the image changes depending on the
Yeah,
angle
I
you're
know what you're
looking at
talking
it
about.
from. Yeah,
It's the same on
it
the
does
DVD.
that.
It's the same on the DVD set. I'll show our video listeners.
It's pretty neat. Pretty nifty.
Oh, does it not pick up the...
It might not.
Yeah. To be fair, he kind of just, shakes. He doesn't actually, change. He more just moves. At least mine does. I don't know if the Blu-ray is different.
I doubt it is.
Yeah. And they look the same. When you look at, on,
The image
websites and
on
stuff.
it.
Yeah. But yeah. That's been our coverage of the first Child's Play. We will be back next week with Child's Play 2. Crazy, I know, right? We're going to go with the sequel next. Which a lot of people think is one of the best ones in the franchise. I also agree it is really good. But, yeah. So we'll be watching that next week. I've been Austin. Oh, no, not yet. No, not yet. Not yet. Sorry.
No. First, we got to plug.
First, I have to plug where all this is. Hey, this is on Spotify, Apple, Google. Go to those places. Leave a 5-star review. Leave a comment. Tell us you love the podcast. Whatever. Or tell us you hate the podcast. Just say something, please. I just want to hear your voices. Also, if you are a video viewer, not listener, and you watch this on YouTube, leave a comment. Like, subscribe, hit that bell. All that crap I have to say to hopefully have success on this stupid godforsaken channel or website. But yeah. Oh.
Do it.
Chris is threatening you now.
Yeah, with a play knife.
Yeah. But yeah, also, if you want to support us directly, patreon.com/horrorboys. Also, if you want to tell your friends about, our YouTube, it's also a lot easier now thanks to their, new handle system. It's, it's youtube.com/@horrorboys. It's really cool. I really am actually, I know it's called a godforsaken website, but they actually did just implement something that's actually really cool for smaller creators like us.
It only took them way too long, but they finally did it.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
For years, we just had, for a year, we had, just numbers, because that's all we could be until you hit a certain level where you get a custom URL. But now, everyone can just have a custom URL, basically. It's cool. I'm really happy about it. But that's not the point. The point is, we're saying goodbye. I'm Austin, joined by Chris. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.